With the Broncos' record being at 2-5, trade rumors have began to circulate surrounding several key players like Bradley Chubb, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. How real are they, and do the Broncos have interest in trading any of these players? We'll shed some insight on that on today's brand new episode, Locked on Broncos.
You are Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, Broncos country? Welcome into a brand new episode, Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much to everybody in Broncos country for tuning in and making Locked on Broncos your first listen of the day every single day, free and available everywhere you get your podcasts in audio format, or whether you watch on YouTube. Do us a favor, hit that subscribe or that follow button down below so you never miss out on a day's worth of Denver Broncos news, content, and coverage. Whether they win, whether they lose, we have you covered every single day, all year long, from the south stands to the end zone. I'm your host, as always, Cody Roark, Broncos reporter from Mile High Sports, joined alongside, as always, by my co-host, Sayre, Bedinger, site expert, predominantly orange.com. Sayre, I mean, obviously, the expectation for this Broncos team here this season was to be a winning football team, to be a playoff football team, and to have, a better offense than what we've seen in years past. And quite frankly, the offense has been the worst part of it. But with a 2-5 record, that is where the territory comes around teams calling and saying, hey, we're interested in this player. What would it take to get him? And that was reported by ESPN's Adam Schefter on Sunday, leading up to kickoff for the Broncos against the New York Jets, that various teams have called and inquired about Bradley Chubb, KJ Hamler, and Jerry Jeudy here. And so now that has a lot of Broncos fans salivating, because there's a portion of the fan base that says, trade everybody, get all the picks. Let's pump the brakes on this. Let's take a little bit of a look at everything. Let's take a look at each player. Let's take a look at the real outlook of this football team in the short and the long term here, my friend.
We got to take a look at it, right, Cody? Because obviously, I mean, draft picks, they don't necessarily equate to immediate success. I mean, we're talking about players that the Broncos have all drafted, right, with premium selections. Bradley Chubb, a top 5 pick in 2018. Jerry Jeudy, a top 15 pick in 2020. KJ Hamler, a high second-round pick that same year. So, I mean, everybody wants the new draft picks, but at the same time, we're talking about trading away guys that we used premium draft selections to acquire, right? So it's one of those interesting things. It's kind of the catch-22, and really an example of exactly what we're saying here. Be careful of what you wish for, right? When you're talking about, and everybody loves, right, the devil they don't know, right? The devil you don't know versus the devil you know. You would rather blow things up than necessarily go forward and just expect the same result or different results with the same guys, right? So the one that really hangs in the balance right now for me, Cody, is Jerry Jeudy, who's coming off a good game against the New York Jets. Kind of looked like he might be Brett Rippon's favorite target out there. To me, I view Jerry Jeudy, and this could be any number of players. You can make an argument in terms of talking about trades, but I view Jerry Jeudy as part of the solution going forward for the Denver Broncos. Of course, teams are going to call and inquire about trades. And I saw ESPN's Jeremy Fowler made a comment or made a tweet and put it out there. He's like, I'm watching 2-4 teams today to see who drops to 2-5 because there could be some action in terms of trades. Is kind of what he was implying. Jerry Jeudy, to me, is somebody that I don't think the Broncos could get appropriate value for at this point. We've talked in the offseason about the potential. Look, a lot of teams around the NFL are trading big-time wide receivers for high draft capital, specifically no less than a first-round draft pick. I don't think it would serve the Broncos very well to just sell on Jerry Jeudy when his value right now is going to be to some other team, maybe a second-round pick, maybe a third-round pick. I mean, I don't know what teams are going to be offering for Jerry Jeudy at this point, but I don't think the Broncos are going to get a first-round pick for him, and therefore I think he's a better part of the solution. You're talking about trading away one of your best receivers when you acquire Russell Wilson, Cody. To me, that makes the argument here really iffy because, yeah, you could probably get a decent draft pick for Jerry Jeudy, and, yeah, you don't have a second-round pick next year, but is it worth it to get rid of one of Russell Wilson's best weapons when we're already talking about the offense struggling so badly?
Well, and I think you make a great point, right? Because draft picks don't always equate to immediate success. And this may sound odd to say, or this may sound harsh, and I don't mean it in a harsh way, but a lot of people, especially when it comes to the NFL draft, operate with a Madden mentality. And look, we've seen teams, say F them picks. It doesn't apply to every single team, right? But here's the reality I want to point out to Broncos fans, because they feel like, I see a lot of tweets, I see a lot of comments. Well, the Broncos have nothing for the future because, they gave away all their picks to get Russell Wilson. This upcoming draft, the 2023 NFL draft, is the final year. The Broncos don't have a first. They don't have a second. And I think that lost in the shuffle of them being 2-5 and that the offense is playing as bad as it is, everyone's saying, okay, everyone on this team is for sale. Get rid of anybody and everybody for draft picks. And who's to say, okay, is there a rookie out there that's going to come in right away and just game change everything? It's so unrealistic to expect that from a rookie, right? Because we talk about growing pains. There are some guys that we see year in and year out be anomalies in a first-round draft class. But the reality of the situation is draft picks aren't going to necessarily always make your team instantly better. It could take some time. And as we know, in Broncos country, I love you guys, but Broncos fans are very impatient when it comes to this team and wanting to win now. The instant gratification, because unfortunately we've been covering a losing team for 7-8 years now. I mean, I understand the frustration there. But I want people to put in perspective. 2023, this upcoming draft class is the final year Denver doesn't have a first or second round pick. I personally believe, when I look at this Broncos roster, especially on defense, they have a good enough roster as is right now to survive another year without a first or second round pick. And we've seen George Paton, really the value for him and his picks have been the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, even 7th round with Jonathan Cooper playing as good as he has. For me, I don't think 2023 NFL draft is a do or die. You have to have a first round pick. Granted, Seattle's going to get Denver's top pick, which is likely to be in the top 5, top 6 at this point, if things keep going the way that they are. But I also want to point this, Sayre, and I'm eager for your thoughts, because I know you're an NFL draft guy, right? And you have the perspective, and this is what I love about what you bring to the show here. You think of things from a team-building perspective here. Denver has the richest owner in football right now. Do you think that the Broncos can get by this year? Because really, when you look at it, the biggest needs for this team are on the offensive line, and obviously play calling right now. Can Denver get by in one more year of free agency? Not to mention you have some guys that contracts are expiring. You can extend them. You can restructure some deals as well. Maybe like a Justin Simmons, restructure his contract to free up more cap space, plus the rollover. What do you think of Denver's optics if they opt to say, okay, hey, you know what? We're going to survive one more year without a first and second. We're going to build our areas of need of free agency, and then we're going to get our draft capital back and just keep stacking from that point.
I think that the biggest question with that to me, Cody, is do you feel like you have to hedge your bets if you're George Paton? Do you feel like you have to go into free agency saying, I know that I have a first or second round pick if I don't get these guys in free agency? Because right now, what are we talking about in terms of what the Broncos need for 2023 free agency? Well, they probably need at least a couple starters on the offensive line, right? Maybe a backup or second tight end, depending on who they can bring back from this year's group. Running back, obviously a question mark with Javonte Williams. Do you have to shift some things around at wide receiver? Those are the interesting areas to me that kind of lead towards, would you try to acquire a higher draft pick in order to hedge your bets? The question is, what does George Paton feel about the 2023 free agent class at his areas of need? If he looks at those and says to himself, man, I feel like even if I get my 3rd or 4th option, like I'm going to be sitting fine, in terms of getting a starting tackle for next year or a starting left guard for next year or center, whatever the case may be. If he feels confident that no matter what option he's able to get, because George Paton is already thinking this way, but I believe that. I mean, the Broncos scouting department, they're already looking ahead to the draft. They're already looking ahead a little bit to free agency, I'm sure, putting together lists and prospective lists of who could be available, trying to formulate a plan to make this team better, because you're in a window with Russell Wilson. I think the only way that the Broncos make a let's call it desperation, even though I don't think that's necessarily the word, at 2-5, if they make a desperation kind of trade of somebody like Bradley Chubb, Jerry Jeudy, something like that, the only reason I could see being, to make that kind of trade would be to hedge your bets, because you're not 100% sure that in free agency you're going to be able to get those starters that you need to get for next season.
A lot of interesting questions present themselves for Broncos GM George Paton, and I'm glad he's kind of taken the proactive approach rather than the reactive. I know fans just say, hey, react quickly, do this. That is the one way how you find yourself becoming a badly run football team. Now, look, the Broncos are 2-5, but I do think that George Paton has done so much to put the Broncos Broncos, the optics of them in a good place. And it's crazy how when you're losing, the optic changes a little bit. Nobody imagined the offense struggling. Nobody imagined Russell Wilson struggling, right? So Broncos country, give George Paton a little bit of space to make some moves and allow him to work. I think that based on what he's done, you owe him that. We'll see how things go, though. But coming up here in just a moment, Broncos country, we're going to talk a little bit about why the Broncos should not trade Bradley Chubb. And considering the edge rusher room right now and some of the injuries mounting up at the position, it makes a little bit of sense. We dive deeper into that coming up here in a moment. But now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. Now, one thing is it can be tough to train your brain to stay in problem-solving mode when you're faced with a challenge in life. But when you learn how to find your own solutions, there's no better feeling. And a therapist can help you become a better problem solver, making it easier to accomplish your goals no matter how big or how small. One thing I've been utilizing so far this NFL season is BetterHelp. I've been using therapy. I do it once a week. One thing you do is that you fill out the form when you sign up at BetterHelp, and it matches you with a therapist. And if you hit it off with your therapist, that's great. If not, you can find a new therapist at absolutely no charge. They take great care of you to try to get you the best fit for your mental health as well. And if you're thinking of getting therapy, try BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, it's accessible, it's affordable, and it's entirely online. Get matched with a therapist after filling out a brief survey and switch therapists anytime that you need to. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's better, HELP.com/locked on. And our good friends over there at LinkedIn. And these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates that are available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you have to do is you can go to LinkedIn Jobs, you can create a free job post in minutes, then you add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread word that you're hiring. And simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and who you'd like to hire. Make sure you finish off 2022 with the right team member for your job today. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. The Denver Broncos should not trade Bradley Chubb because injuries are impacting the edge rusher depth right now. Plus, what can you really get for Chubb right now with a half season remaining on his contract? Thank you so much, Broncos country, for tuning in, making Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day every single day on your favorite audio podcasting platform, or whether you watch on YouTube. Sayre and I are grateful that you take time out of your day to join us to talk all things Denver Broncos. Make sure you let yourself be heard in the YouTube comment sections down below. You can tweet us on Twitter at Roark NFL, at Sayre Bedinger, at Locked On Broncos. Sayre, I am on the boat, right? Because Bradley Chubb's name has been linked to some of the trade talk going on. Some teams have interest in Bradley Chubb. And I'm on the firm train of saying that the Broncos should not trade Bradley Chubb. And here's why, right? Because he's playing on the final year of his contract here for the Broncos, and he's having a very, very good season. He's a force. He's creating consistent pressure. He's leading the team with 5.5 sacks right now for this Broncos organization. But more so, I think that he offers more value to Denver right now than he does to any other team. And when you look at the injury to Randy Gregory right now, who we anticipate to be back maybe sometime after Week 10, Week 11, maybe something along that lines. It depends on how his process goes after he had knee surgery on his meniscus there. But then now Baron Browning, we're awaiting word on what the MRI says about his hip. He suffered a hip injury in Sunday's game against the Jets and did not return, was quickly ruled out. So that creates a little bit of cause for concern. Yes, the Broncos have Nick Bonito, their second-round draft pick that they have as well alongside Jonathan Cooper. But right now, edge rushers looking very, very thin, and the defense is playing really well. I don't know if you want to go in and disrupt the continuity of that.
Yeah, I think that those are all incredible points. Not to mention, I mean, Aaron Patrick also went down for the season with a torn ACL. So you are down some bodies right now at the edge position. I think, I guess, to play a little devil's advocate here, I mean, for other teams looking to acquire Chubb, here's the leverage that the Broncos have that could get them maybe the best value that they could out of any player they have on the roster. The fact that Bradley Chubb is eligible for the franchise tag after this year, not that any team is going to go into a trade like wanting to say, hey, we're going to get this guy and we're going to franchise tag him after the year, because like you mentioned, it's either a half season rental or the franchise tag, unless you want to extend him, unless you want to give him the big bucks, right? So right now it's like, who is going to trade premium draft capital for Bradley Chubb to give the Broncos what they want, and also to get back something from Chubb that's going to take them on a deep playoff run. Those are the big questions right now that may be too iffy on both sides to really say that, yes, okay, definitely we'll send a first-round pick to Denver for Bradley Chubb. That's kind of where I'm in this in-between on the whole Bradley Chubb thing, Cody, because if Randy Gregory does come back after the bye week, well, first of all, we don't know exactly what he's going to look like after having a procedure on his knee. But also, like you mentioned, if Baron Browning was fully healthy, it might make trading Bradley Chubb a little bit easier, so to speak, for the Denver Broncos. If you could say, well, when Randy Gregory comes back, Baron Browning is still going to be in the starting lineup. Plus, we have Benito. Jonathan Cooper's done well with his limited reps. That's where I could see the Broncos maybe looking at this and saying, if everything works out perfectly, we could afford to make this trade. Unfortunately, you just have no idea. And like you said, the only thing that's working for this team right now is the defense. And Bradley Chubb has been one of the best players on that side of the ball. So it's such a tension right now with these two sides right now. You have, obviously, the Broncos set themselves up to potentially make a move like this, or to let go, like a lot of people thought. Bradley Chubb is not long for the team after the Broncos drafted Benito and transitioned Browning to edge. I don't know. I'm in such a weird spot on this. I don't want the Broncos to trade Bradley Chubb. I don't think anybody wanted them to be in this position at any point this season, to be considering. We all kind of hoped, man, maybe the Broncos could find some type of way to be buyers at the trade deadline and really bring in some more talent to go on a championship run. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and that's where things get kind of murky in these waters. Bradley Chubb is a very good player. Obviously, George Paton has called him a core player in the past. Do the Broncos envision a long-term future with Bradley Chubb, or is their long-term future elsewhere? I think that's where this discussion really takes an interesting, it comes to an interesting fork in the road.
I think you present some very realistic sides to it, right? And I think that the other dilemma too, like for another team, you mentioned that the teams could franchise tag. I think we've seen George Paton do this as well for players. Like, you want to do what's best for players, right? I don't think George Paton, if he were to trade Bradley Chubb, would send him to like a team that's not winning games. I think that would be the wrong message to send, right? Because then that goes against everything that we've seen of George Paton. And, I mean, what does it say to the locker room when a team trades away one of your captains? That right there is also another interesting dilemma, I think, that kind of presents itself here when we're talking about it. But more so, there's also the team that takes on the risk that Bradley Chubb could, in fact, decide to walk during free agency from that team, right? And maybe want to go play for a contender there, as we saw what happened with Von Miller. Denver trades him to L.A., wins a Super Bowl, but then he leaves. He leaves them, and they were banking that he was going to be back this year, and they could definitely be using him right now. But it's just one of those things. We just never know how it goes. I know Chubb's, he's got his head down. He's working. He's just continuing to grind. He had a lot of good things to say. After the game, he said, I understand this is a business, but I'm just trying to, help. I'm trying to be there for my guys. I'm trying to just keep battling so we could try to turn this thing around. Love the mentality here of Bradley Chubb. So I think that's something that kind of presents itself there. Broncos country, let us know what you think down below. I'm on the firm trade. I feel like Denver should extend Bradley Chubb, to be honest with you. I think that now he's on track of kind of staying healthy. He's passed some of these hurdles that we have seen so far throughout the, his first 4 years of his career. This is a year where I think that, considering all the injuries happening around Denver, the fact that he's healthy, I think is a great sign. And his production speaks for himself. His pressure speaks for itself. He and Draymond Jones are absolutely just unbelievable players to have there as well. So it'll be very interesting. One thing that could happen, if the Broncos let Chubb walk in free agency, they could get a comp pick as well based on where he signs and how well he plays. So keep that in your mind as well, Broncos country. But coming up here in just a moment, we're going to dive into the concept of Jerry Jeudy. Why is he getting so much hate from Broncos fans? Is it misaimed? We dive into that and much more coming up here in just a moment. But before we do that, let me tell you about Prize Picks, sponsor of today's episode, Lockdown Broncos. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports done right, and with the Prize Picks app, you choose 2 to 5 players that you're focused on heading into the week, and these players will have a projection that's set by Prize Picks, and you simply choose whether or not they will have more or less than their Prize Picks projection, which could allow you to win 10 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up today and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Denver Broncos wide receiver Jerry Jeudy's name has been linked to some of the trade rumblings around the NFL from teams interested in him, but will the Broncos look at trading him? Thank you so much, Broncos Country, for tuning in and making Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day every single day on your favorite audio podcasting platform, or whether you're watching on YouTube. Sayre, look, this is I'd say a topic that I'm starting to grow very passionate about here, because I see a lot of unfair and overly harsh criticism of Broncos wide receiver Jerry Jeudy by the fan base in general, and some local media members that simply have these preconceived notions about him that simply can't be erased. Like I said, Jerry's always been good to me inside the locker room. He's got a great personality. I wish more people could see what I see every day with Jerry Jeudy. But more importantly, just the day that the trade rumors circulated surrounding his name, no surprise he balls out with Brett Rypien as his quarterback. 7 catches, 96 yards on 11 targets, including a beautiful 45-yard catch across the middle of the field, which kind of painted the picture for me that this is a little bit of an issue with the Broncos offense, with Nathaniel Hackett's offensive system, and also I think a little bit with Russell Wilson in a sense, right? Because what is one of the narratives we've heard a little bit about Russell Wilson? He doesn't like to throw across the middle of the field. Now in training camp, he was doing a lot of that. Not sure why in the regular season we haven't seen too much of that. He's missing guys that are wide open across the middle. But man, when the Broncos can use Jerry Jeudy across the middle and attack defenses, we see exactly what he can do. Do you feel like Broncos fans, and obviously some media members as well, do you think that they're too harsh on Jerry Jeudy?
I think they are, Cody, and you and I have talked about this as well, but really against the Jets, I mean, Courtland Sutton was the guy that I thought, kind of brought forth some issues at the wide receiver position, things that we need to see improved, as opposed to Jerry Jeudy, right? I think everybody sees Jerry Jeudy as the rookie in 2020 who may or may not have cost the team a couple of games with his dropped passes. Having an issue back in 2020, however, does not mean that Jerry Jeudy should be getting the same treatment from fans here in 2022. I think he's improved his game. I think overall, Jerry Jeudy, he can still do the same things, right? He's still great at getting separation. He's still outstanding after the catch. He gives the Broncos a vertical speed element. He can do all these different things, Cody. And to me, right now, I think he's the Broncos' best wide receiver. And that's all due respect to Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton, to me, against the New York Jets, a couple of things were amplified. Of course, we could talk all day about were there some penalties that should have been called against Sauce Gardner? Sure. But Courtland Sutton had a couple opportunities to make some big plays for Brett Rypien, and he didn't do it. The 50-50 ball down the middle of the field against DJ Reed, I felt like Sutton should have come back to the ball a little bit instead of trying to catch it in stride. I know he's running at full speed, but he's an NFL wide receiver. Come back for the ball there. The 50-50 ball against Sauce Gardner on the 4th and 3 play, that probably should have just been a shorter pass play, right? Courtland Sutton had an opportunity to go up and get that ball even through some contact. Look, we've seen him make way tougher catches. I think against the Jets, we saw arguably the best catch that we've ever seen from Jerry Jeudy, right? I mean, the catch at the sideline, that was just, it was just for a first down, but it was one of the most acrobatic catches we've seen from him. We saw him make plays after the catch against the Jets. We saw him on the quick slant across the middle of the field. We saw a little bit of everything from Jeudy in this game. We saw him take a huge hit from DJ Reed and come back into the game and keep playing well. I think you're right, Cody. Jerry Jeudy gets very unfairly treated by Denver Broncos fans. Does he have issues that like everybody else in the offense? Sure. I mean, absolutely. And nobody's exempt from improvement or blame or whatever you want to say. But I think at this point, trading Jerry Jeudy, to me, it might have made a little bit more sense a few weeks ago when he wasn't playing as well, or when the Broncos weren't getting him the ball as much. It's like, well, if he's not going to get the ball, sure, by all means, figure out a trade for him. But at the same time, you see him get the ball, you see what he can do for the offense. You can't help but think, man, the Broncos are just better off having number 10 out there.
Well, and there's a point to be made as well. Russell Wilson has some offensive personnel-based influence with general manager George Paton. Do you think that he would sign off and be okay with losing a guy that could be one of his best weapons? And look, Russ has to go to Jerry Jeudy more. He has to find ways to hit him. And it's also on the scheme, too. It's on coaching to be able to get Jerry the ball. He simply has gotten it enough, right? But we've seen him get the ball in explosive plays. We've seen him moss a Seattle Seahawks defender for a touchdown. We've seen, the games where, late in the game against the Colts, he had that catch that got him into field goal range that got them into a position where they could have potentially won the game against the Colts in overtime, and simply the offense just couldn't execute. Jerry Jeudy's been involved in big plays on this offense, but hasn't been involved enough, I would say more so than he deserves to be. It's been other guys have been getting a lot of the looks there, and I think there's a distribution issue right now with this Broncos offense. You know, as much as I'm a big fan of Courtland Sutton, he gets a majority of the target share right. And a lot of people are going to say, well, Jerry Jeudy struggles with drops. Did you know that Jerry Jeudy does not even lead the team in drops this season? Courtland Sutton does. And I'm not sure how many drops count against, the New York Jets, or if that counts as a pass defense, but it's not Jerry Jeudy that leads the team in drops. So I think Broncos fans need to chill a little bit on this Jerry Jeudy hate narrative that we have seen, because when he's used the right way, he is very effective, and I believe he has value both this season and I believe long-term for this Broncos offense. Broncos country, let us know what you think down below in the YouTube comment section. Should the Broncos entertain some of these trade offers for Bradley Chubb, KJ Hamler, or Jerry Jeudy? Let us know down below. Let us know your thoughts. But that will wrap up today's episode of Locked On Broncos here on your favorite audio podcasting platform, or whether you're watching on YouTube. Sayre and I will be back. The Broncos are headed to London. We'll have an update on Baron Browning's injury, and we'll have a little bit of an outlook this week as the Broncos prepare to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. You get that here on the Locked On Broncos podcast.